Welcome to the Gut Mind Collective podcast, a show that helps busy women develop sustainable, nourishing health habits so you feel calmer and more energetic. I'm your host, Maren Padgett, sharing guided meditations, gut mind health hacks, and interviews to inspire you to put yourself first and lead a purposely healthy life. I'm so excited to be joined by Casey Ann Brown today. She is the founder of the Yellow Door Project, which is a vessel for connection to yourself and also to one another and then the world around us. So Casey is a very talented individual. She's an illustrative artist, an empowerment coach, and a Reiki therapist. She spent the last 5 years or so exploring alternative healing and mindfulness methods. And she spent time traveling the world as well, which we'll explore in more detail in this episode, and understanding various cultural healing techniques. And she also continues to explore her own inner world using art and meditation, music, play, nature, and communication and movement to open up that deeper relationship with the self. Welcome, Casey.
Thank you. That was a lovely intro. Thanks so much.
You are so welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. I thought before we dive really deep into the topic of unlocking your inner child through creativity, that we might do a little rapid round first.
Sure.
So, being an artist or art therapist, what art modality do you enjoy the most?
I find at the moment, and it has been for the last couple of years, that by far my favourite art modality is illustration. And I really enjoy the detail in my illustrations. So I have found over the course of the last couple of years that when I'm doing this, it's such a form of meditation for me and a chance to manifest. I have had some magical experience based on my illustrations and them coming into reality, and I found this completely mind-blowing. So definitely illustration for me.
And are your illustrations quite detailed and...
They very much are. I think most people respond to my illustrations with that comment, look at the detail. And it's relatively new. I only started drawing really in 2018, and the discovery of that has completely revolutionized my life, completely changed it in ways that I could never have dreamt possible, to be honest.
Awesome. Do you share them on Instagram or?
Yeah, they're on my Instagram. Not all of them, but some of the special ones are, yes.
Okay, I'll have to, if you wouldn't mind, we might even share one in the show notes if that would be all right.
Of course, definitely. Cool. I'll find a special one that's sort of relevant to this and pop it in there.
That'd be great. Give the listeners something to really connect in with.
Mm.
So you are a really travelled individual and you've been to many countries. And so of all the places that you've been, do you have a favourite country?
I definitely do. And my friends and family probably get sick of me talking about this place. They're like, oh, here we go again. But my favourite is Ireland. And I adore Ireland for numerous reasons, but the greatest reason being as soon as I step off the flight and into the arms of Ireland, my heart is completely open, and the belief within me that anything is possible really, really steps up a notch. And every time I go there, something out of this world happens to me. It just feels like I'm home. And I don't know if it's ancestral kind of connections or, past life or something along those lines. It's really unexplainable, the feeling that I get when I arrive there. But it's such a beautiful connection. I have such a blessed experience every time I go there. And yeah, it is also, from what I understand, the heart chakra of the world. So
Really?
yeah, so different countries represent different chakras, and Ireland being the heart chakra, which is understandable when you go there, seeing how green and luxurious it is. It's luscious also. It's fantastic.
I haven't been to the UK or Ireland, so yeah,
It's one to definitely pop
only
on the bucket
imagine.
list.
Yep.
Unfortunately, not at the moment, but
No. Just travel
hopefully,
virtually.
yeah, like do what you can to connect with it, and it'll definitely bring spirit to your life.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Um,
No problem.
so I ask all guests, because self-care is so important in the view of the Gut Mind Collective, I'd love to know your number one self-care ritual.
At the moment, my number one self-care ritual is my beauty regime, and it does change. It's changed over the course of the last couple of years, but at present in my life, I'm really stepping deeper into the feminine side of myself and really exploring that to the nth degree, where, you know, for much of my personal life, I've been operating out of more of a masculine approach to everything, and I'm finding that really not conducive to my health and to my way of being. So I have put a lot of sacredness around different beauty regimes, even just washing my face, you know, just the manner in which I'm approaching it. I'm being more conscious of the narrative that's running in my mind, and also the way in which I'm experiencing it. And I'm experiencing it more from a pleasure state of being now. But it is like, it has been quite a journey because of the inner narrative and the criticism, the judge that steps up when I have been doing these kind things for myself. And it's a work in progress, and I find that, you know, a beautiful shower or just something to really activate that divine feminine within myself is just extraordinary.
Beautiful. That's a great reminder about that inner dialogue. I think I'm a bit older than you. Like I'm in my early 40s. So, you know, when you kind of notice things and you notice wrinkles showing up, or you notice skin sagging in a different way, or, you know, doing its own thing or whatever. And as you said, that judge and inner critic, like having that awareness of that inner dialogue that's coming up, and then reframing and just starting to be kind to yourself through that dialogue. That's beautiful. You've brought awareness to me today, Casey. It's awesome.
It honestly, I feel like every woman and man in a different way, maybe, but especially women, we can channel different goddesses and bring that kind of energy into our everyday, because the feminine is such a powerhouse when we really look after her and nurture her into, you know, full expression. And I feel like the society at the moment is not really set up to allow for that. So it is really important to create a space to nourish it and have fun with it too. I've been playing around a lot. So yeah.
Awesome. Oh, I think we could have many conversations
Oh,
about things.
definitely. And it just keeps opening. Like once you kind of start in that realm, it's everything opens up, and yeah, it's pretty wonderful.
It does. Yeah, you go down this rabbit hole, don't you, of exploration when you know, the universe sends you people for reasons, and yeah, it's interesting. Thank you so much for, you know, diving into the little rapid round. You know, so today we're talking about unlocking your inner child, particularly through creativity. But this is all born from an amazing journey of resilience and courage and determination. because you actually overcame leukemia as a child and then had to really work through the process of losing your father as well. So, can you tell us more about this journey and how the Yellow Door Project came to be?
Definitely can do that. It is quite a rather large journey, so I'll try and summarize it to the best of my ability. It really begun for me on my 30th birthday, and I found myself in Byron Bay. I, for the first time, decided that I'd go and stay at a youth hostel on my own, and believe it or not, I'd never done that before. And at the time, it was rather frightening, and looking back now, it's funny to think how scared I was of that. And whilst I was up there, I met a man, and early on in the vacation, I just thought this guy was a complete douche, and I was completely wrong. At the end, we connected, and it was like both our hearts completely burst open, and my heart exploded to the point where I was really overwhelmed with all of the emotions coming to surface, because prior to that, I hadn't really allowed for emotion to come up in my life. I was really focused on everyone and everything else outside of myself and looking after them, and never acknowledging the deep trauma and hurt that was inside of my heart. So this explosion in this experience, from this experience, created this awakening for me, and it really triggered this sequence of occurrences post this experience. And I started receiving messages or little intuitive nudges to start the healing journey for myself. And at first, I thought, there was nothing to look at from the consequence of having childhood cancer. I believed that it was solely, a blessing, and it gave me a different outlook on life. It allowed me to empathize with other people. It had given me so much, but not once did I really take a moment to understand the deep trauma that it inflicted on my life. So I started to work with a psychologist at that point, and I was guided into sound healing and other modalities that were out of the ordinary scope. I've always been a very sort of alternative person, so like I wanted to, and I was taken on the ride to explore different healing modalities and understand the benefit for healing yourself from a holistic space, not just a one pillar approach. And I embarked on this ride, and early on in the piece, I was given this notion, and it came out of nowhere really, about this Yellow Door project, about delivering to the world really a really full sense of well-being, not just a physical form of health, a mental, emotional, spiritual form of health as well. Because prior to that, and during this early phase, I was managing a gym. So I really was always about health, but I hadn't looked at it from a full circle piece. I thereafter sort of head on overseas for the first time, where I took 3 months out from work and started really delving into who I truly am. And it was terrifying at the time. I had no idea of where I was going. I booked a ticket and didn't really think beyond that. And it really showed me the strength within me, and how by stepping into the unknown, anything could and does happen, and the power of human connection. I met so many people along the way that taught me about me and shared these little heart journeys of their own, unlocking more of myself in that process. And I returned to Australia completely changed, and I knew I had to leave my full-time job at that point and really explore more of myself and the world and what this Yellow Door project could be.
Mm-hmm.
The Yellow Door project was such a catalyst for my journey, and at that time it was such a it was really like the main catalyst, and it's kind of sad to say that it wasn't for my own benefit. You know, it was to help the world. You know, I was so I abandoned myself so much that I thought that I needed to, you know, chase this idea rather than just heal myself as a priority. But the journey continued, and I ended up in art school not long after, and discovering that I was able to draw in that process. And that is when I birthed the concept of reconnection with your inner child through art. And it was a sort of a little while later, a year or so later, that I started teaching workshops during COVID, where we would explore our inner worlds through the use of art, and allow ourselves to play without judgment and without fear of criticism from others, or whatever the case may be. And I found like these worlds, these doors opening. And yeah, it's just been such a journey that it's hard to really summarize in a few moments, because I actually, between those times, I ended up overseas again for a 6-month stint where I completely stepped into a lot of the wounds that at this point were left behind from my father's death. And him passing away was a very sudden occurrence, and it was a complete it took me into some really dark places, because he was my number one supporter, one of my best friends, my real guide, and he truly believed in everything that I was doing, and supporting me, and also going along on his spiritual journey and his little awakening through the sharing of my own experience with him. So to lose him really shook me at my foundations. And fortunately, I'd learned a lot prior to that, that I started to implement in my own healing again. And I, along the way, learned that, you know, dancing and movement is such a release for freedom. And I started just playing with like different scenarios, and really tuning into my body and what its needs were through that experience. And I found myself in really extraordinary positions, and also really terrifying experiences as well. Like I ended up in the desert in Morocco with a bunch of wonderful French women, and I didn't speak a great deal of French when I was there. So in this particular experience, I really lost my sense of self. I had nothing to bounce my personality off of. So I completely sort of opened up in a way that it was pretty much forced open to realize that, you know, I am more than just my words, and I'm more than just my voice. Like I am everything. And, you know, I connected with these women in such an energetic way, and really felt connection beyond anything I'd experienced before in that way. And yeah, so my story has gone a little bit all over the place during that explanation, but
Not at all.
it's just, yeah, it's been quite a journey, and the development of the Yellow Door project is just truly based on my own experience of healing and the power of connection to nature, to play, communication to others, and art, and all these wonderful things that we have at our fingertips that we don't utilize anymore. And it doesn't have to cost a fortune to connect, because with connection we heal, and that's pretty much it.
And as you said, with your experience, particularly in your childhood years, with dealing with leukemia and the physicality and the medical model of that, I guess it wasn't even in the care plan to include creativity for healing and that kind of thing. And this is what's awakened that desire within you to share with people, not necessarily if they're going through cancer treatment. I mean, it could be, I assume people from all walks of life can assist, can get support from the Yellow Door Project, but your experience can definitely add to that psychosocial support for people going through cancer therapy. And having, through my own learnings within holistic counseling, art is definitely an incredible healing way. And even, back when I was 6, I used to draw a lot, and it was a way of making meaning. And, it gives you the ability to access places in your unconscious that traditional talk therapy may not actually be able to go to. And so what are some ways that, women in particular can connect with their inner child through art and play?
I use art, and I'll just give it based on my own experience because it's the best way to do it in my eyes, is to transmute emotion. So, if you are feeling tremendously overwhelmed or angry or any of those perceived darker emotions, get out a big piece of paper, and generally like a dark pen or whatever feels right for you, and just let your hand go. Just let it release that energy without a story, without any need for it to be anything. And then just let it be. Like I've done it before where I was feeling so overwhelmed in my state of being, and I just needed to get it out. I got this big black texture and I drew this hideous big tree looking thing, and then I just ripped it all up and chucked it away. And it makes you feel better because you don't need to go into the story of the way you feel all the time and kind of rationalize it. It's just energy in motion. We need to just get it out of us sometimes. And I find that such a powerful way. Another way to connect with the child in you, I find, is to pick up a pen or pencil, color, non-color, doesn't matter, in your opposite hand to which you write with, and start drawing something close by. You could pick up a flower, or you can, interpret your other hand. I do that as well, where you can draw on a page your interpretation of your hand without looking at it. So you start to do it and let your hand take over with that journey. So it takes you out of your mind, and it takes you somewhere else. And then you look at your picture at the end and you crack up laughing, because it's meant to be a bit of fun, because we're so serious about what the end result of our drawing will be that we don't bother. And the narrative that I get from a lot of people is, oh, I don't draw, I'm no good at drawing. And that's not the point. Like, the point of drawing, like, a child doesn't say to themselves, oh, I'm not good at drawing, I'm just going to stop when they're young. Once they're influenced by that need for approval or need for validation, then they may stop their drawing because they feel like they're not good enough. But until that point, they'll just do it anyway. And they don't need to have an outcome. It just needs to be for the joy of it. And just, yeah, just make it a fun space for yourself where, you know, you've got even a glass of red wine. I started being really creative early on in my journey with red wine. I'd have a glass of red wine and then just let whatever came out come out. And it's just a fun way of doing it.
And you hold workshops as well, creativity workshops. Did you want to share a little bit about what kind of happens within one of those workshops?
Sure. So each of them are quite different. I will speak about my last workshop, which was all around our power, our self-confidence, our inner strength. And what we did in this workshop is explored through meditation what that feels like. And thereafter, we each built our own personal power mandala. So we spent the evening really sort of having a little bit of discussion and tuning in with our own personal power symbols. So some of the participants drew animals. I think what else was there? Shapes that came out, and I did a lightning bolt, just whatever represented personal power. And from that, we built our mandala and infused it with intention. So each of the participants can walk away with their mandala, and whenever they need that strength and that inner pillar of power, they can look to that piece for that outcome. And it was phenomenal. Like, one of the participants had never drawn before, besides as a child, and came out with this incredible dolphin that was just like, I don't even understand how it happened, because I mean, well, I do, because it's just when you let the creativity flow through you, anything is possible. But that was one of the experiences in the workshops. But I run a multitude of workshops around different connection pieces. So that was around an art modality.
Okay. So you have several different ways to bring, energy into the world. What aspects of your life and your life work makes you feel the most alive and, that sense of energetic, and feeling energized?
In my work, I feel like it does change, and it depends on, what phase I'm in. Like, at the moment, I've gone into a real more of a yin space as I sort of go deeper into the feminine within myself, where I've really found aliveness in my illustrations, and I've needed that isolation almost, and that time with myself to let these illustrations be created, because they are part of my personal growth, and part of my story is being created through these illustrations. Another form of aliveness that I experience is complete connection with the people that come to these workshops, and people turn up and they offer vulnerability in these spaces as well, which is incredible, because for me, it's allowing people the chance to let go of the mask that they feel they need to wear in everyday life, and just be whoever they really want to be in these spaces. And there's just beautiful, like, true connection in these workshops, because there's truth in it. And the intention I take into the spaces is really thought out, and I create time before each workshop to meditate into the workshop, and to really inject the intention that I want for that particular experience. And I found it completely um, necessity, because we can really create the environment that we wish if we do take the time to do that.
It's almost like you're anchoring that space for someone who's coming to a workshop to really access those parts within themselves that they may not actually have that conscious awareness of. And so by providing that beautiful safe container, you're providing a safe place for people to be authentically themselves, but they may not actually know what that authenticity is, but it's unlocking that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I absolutely love seeing people discover something in themselves, and something maybe they'd once had and get to play with again, or something that like the participant that they never knew they could do. And it's just like this. It is the child in them, and when a child does something new, and they're looking for adventure. They're always looking for play. And for some reason, we decide that we should stop playing. And that's just the beginning of health issues in my eyes.
It's true, yeah. Because if you're repressing that part of yourself, that repression is an emotional repression, and that can then result in
All
dis-ease
kinds
within the
of stuff.
body. So if there was like one message that you could get out to the world, or a really large group of people, maybe women in particular, what would that message be?
I think the message that I would send to the entire world is to open your eyes again to nature. It is all around us all the time, and yet often we walk with blindfolds on towards nature. And if we literally just spend a moment and acknowledge what is around us, it completely can change your life. It is this beautiful, beautiful tool that lies everywhere, that we can ask help from. We can ask for nourishment. We can ask for mothering. We can ask for fathering. We can look to for inspiration. We can just be. And there are, actually, following that, I would just say lay on the grass. Give yourself a chance to just lay on the grass, and that will give you so many benefits that it's beyond words.
That grounding. I love grounding. It's definitely a fantastic way to just remind you of the connection that we have with the earth, and how it's always so stable and solid and there for us.
It just feels like you're being like held, like truly held and listened to, which is, for a lot of people that doesn't happen. So yeah.
And nature doesn't judge either. Like a blue wren flitting in some scrub, it's just there being its little blue wreniness. And so many gifts in these little moments in nature, and tuning into that, and having that gratitude, I think, as well, when you see something beautiful like a rainbow. And thank you so much.
Yes. You're welcome. I would just say there's so many messages in nature as well if we listen.
Yes, and quietening the mind.
That's the way.
Not necessarily having anything plugged into your ears. Just being open. Awesome. Thank you so much. So, as we wrap up this episode, is there any last things that you'd like to say to the audience and our listeners?
I would just suggest that you take a step out of the ordinary, and reconnect with that child inside of you that's been there all along and is just looking for a chance to make an appearance in life again. And don't worry about what other people may or may not think about your actions. Like, just do a cartwheel or do a handstand if you want to do that. Just do a roly-poly if that makes you feel good. Just be. That's what I would say.
Oh, I love it. Sometimes spontaneously I do cartwheels across the lawn. I'm just like, I feel like doing a cartwheel right now. Okay, I'm just going to do it and hope that I don't like sprain something.
No, and you never do. Like kids don't even think about, injuring themselves. It's just like, oh yeah. But
They
yeah,
just do
we
it.
can learn a lot from kiddies.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We can. So I ask all of my lovely guests to share like one quote or affirmation or mantra that, guides you through times. Do you have one that you would like to share?
I do. And it comes from my youngest brother. And he said to me a couple of years ago, before I went overseas, he said to me, just do nothing. And it was such simple advice, and it has taken me, well, from that time to only maybe about a year ago to completely start doing that, and trust in the relaxation and the power of nothingness. I use that whenever I'm overwhelmed and there's too much going on, or I feel like I need to push too hard and be something. I just step back into that nothingness, because there's always answers that come up in that nothingness, and there's always restoration. So do nothing is, it might not sound like a strong piece of advice, but for me, it's been everything. And I just relayed that advice back to him last night. So do nothing.
It's fantastic. And an image came to mind of Yin Yoga, like, a Yin Yoga class, you feel like you're doing nothing. However, there's so much internal work going on with the focus of the breath and just focus on the pose and being present. So it's a great metaphor.
Thank you. It's not mine, but Michael is
Thanks.
he's
Thanks,
a
Michael.
wise man.
Yep. So where can our listeners find out more about the work that you do?
Probably the best way would be via the website, and it's www.theyellowdoorproject.org, or have a look on my Instagram as well. You can have a look at the illustrations and a few pieces of information that I've accumulated over the years throughout my journey. And yeah, that's probably the easiest way.
Fantastic. And we'll link that in the show notes as well.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time and your presence today, Casey. I've really enjoyed getting to know you and connecting, and I can't wait to, just see the Yellow Door Project evolve over time and as it is now.
Thank you, Maren, for inviting me. It's been a really lovely experience, and yeah, I feel privileged to be here.
That's awesome. Thank you. We trust that you enjoyed this episode of the Gut Mind Collective podcast. Be sure to hit subscribe on your favourite pod player, or you can catch us over at thegutmindcollective.com. And if you want to join a community of like-minded women who value connection, courage, nourishment, and nature, you can find our Facebook group by searching up Nourish and Connect in groups. Goodbye for now.